welcome to the first episode of this channel. For the next 5 episodes, you'll be building, painting, and creating a diorama for this KV-1 model from RMF. I'll now show you the parts of this model, such as the tracks, the turret, various hatches that will come in handy for making the lamp, and even more pieces, including some photo-etched metal parts, and decals that we might not use, but we'll see. We also have some string that we can use for something. Alright, so let's get started. We're going to work on the tracks now, and we need these very specific pieces that I'll cut out with the clippers. Once I cut them out, we'll glue 2 of them together to create one large odd piece. Thanks to this odd piece, we'll be able to place the tracks on it. We have plenty of these tracks, and I've also laid out some pins next to them that we'll use to connect 2 tracks together. I'll now cut out the tracks with the clippers. While cutting out these tracks, I noticed that there are 2 different types of tracks. Alright, so here we go. We have some files here that I'll use to smooth out all the tracks. There are 2 types of these small tracks, so I prepared 2 little containers to separate them. I'll also be smoothing them with a sponge, and once everything is nice and smooth, I'll start assembling the tracks. This is what a smooth track looks like, and now we'll do a time lapse of putting them all together as they should be. Once I'm done with that, here we have these pins that I will now insert into the little holes in the tracks. Do you see how I'm doing it? I have to take a pin, put it in, and press it with the tweezers. Then I just repeat the process the entire time. Look at how these wonderful tracks have bent. To streamline the process, I took these pins, I cut them out in sprues, and then I start pushing 4 or more of them into these little holes, and afterwards I seal them with Tamiya extra thin glue. Once the glue is dry, I take my scalpel and cut away the line, just like in the video. I finished making all the tracks. It took me quite a while, and everything bends and twists just the way it should. These tracks are really awesome. Hey. I'm now starting to work on the model, which means the lower part of the tank, often called the hull. I'm cutting out the large side panels that will support the entire lower section and the whole tank. I'm trimming any uneven edges with a scalpel, just like on the smaller parts. I do this with other pieces, and now I place them in and take my favorite glue, Tamiya extra thin, and gently apply it to each piece. Once I finished all the smaller parts, I'm moving on to the large lower section of the model. On this large lower part, I'm attaching a small panel and am simply gluing it with Tamiya extra thin. I also apply glue to the sides of this panel, and in the 2 holes on the panel, I take a small amount of glue and just insert the hooks that will be useful later for attaching a large chain. Once I'm done with that, the fun begins because I take some Tamiya putty, I think it's the silver one, and I make a mixture that I'll apply to the main side panel of the model to give it a rough, thick texture. To make this mixture, I obviously take the Tamiya putty and mix it with a few drops of Tamiya extra thin glue. Once I've mixed everything together, I'll take a weak brush, preferably a fairly large one that's already worn out so I don't ruin a new good brush, and I'll apply the mixture onto the panel to create a really cool texture. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm genuinely impressed with this effect. Now I'll just paint the inside of the lens that will be mounted at the back and this panel with a chrome light color. From these beautiful clear pieces, I cut out a small piece of glass, which I'll then fit into the center of the painted and dried area, and on top of that, I'll place a small photo-etched circle, which I glue with super glue black. All right. When we have all the parts of the lower section of our tank, the hull, we can put them together using Tamiya extra thin glue. Here comes the tricky part, because we need to fit the suspension into each correct hole. Of course, I'm using Tamiya extra thin glue. It's a very realistic suspension, because when I put it in, it can actually bounce just like the real thing, just like in the video. So when we do the diorama, we won't have any trouble adjusting the tracks. Going to start a rather tedious task, which is making all the wheels. Of course, I won't explain everything in detail, since it's just wheels, so we take two pieces and glue them together. For example, these wheels I'm working on now need a rubber piece in the center, just like the slightly smaller ones. Alright, every wheel is glued together. Took me a little while. Alright, now the real work begins. I'm cutting out the front part of the tank, which will be the most visible part, along with the turret, of course. I'm also cutting out a slightly smaller piece to glue right at the front. I'll use a scalpel to smooth out any uneven edges, just like I did with that wheel, and I'll also do a bit of filing. Then I'll repeat that texture mixture we made before with the Tamiya extra putty and the extra thin glue, and I'll get that applied in just a moment. Now I'm applying it with a slightly smaller brush than before, and I've also added just a bit more glue to the mixture so that the texture is more diluted and a bit smoother, less rough and coarse than before. So I'm aiming for a nice, smooth finish. exactly the same thing on the other plate. And in order to save my mixture and not waste it, I'll just do it right away on the turret as well, just to make the process more efficient. So that the texture isn't the same as before, I'll just sand everything down with a file, and then maybe with a sponge afterwards. I also forgot to mention that with the leftover mixture, I added some texture to the front panels of the turret. And like I said, I'm sanding it with a sponge because it gets into those curved areas nicely, so I don't have to use a stiff file. I'm going to glue this smaller panel onto the bigger one, apply the glue, and then wait for it to set. Now I'll be gluing on the smaller details, like the front part of the machine gun and the lamp, which I'll paint just like the other one in a chrome color. I'll glue this lamp on with black super glue so it holds more firmly, because the Tamiya Extra Thin doesn't really adhere well to the surface we created with our mixture. I'm gluing on more decals and even more details. Now it's time for the machine gun. I really had a hard time putting it together, so I won't show you every single step of how I glued and assembled it. I'm sorry. Assembling it took me quite a while, so just enjoy the music. Now it's time to add the rest of the details, like this little telescope that soldiers use to aim. What I'm doing here might look a bit strange because after cutting out this piece with the clippers, it turned into a really ugly shape, which I'll just cover with a glass varnish. Positioning this part was really strange, so you can't really see on the camera just how much I'm struggling with it. Now that I've got it in place, it looks like this, and I just need to add one more telescope right here. Alright, now we're moving on to a pretty cool part. I'm going to pick out two panels, one to place in between the other. I'm choosing the one on the left because it'll match up nicely with the bigger panel thanks to these supports here, and it'll line up well with the back down. To keep things from getting boring, I've already finished that panel, added a little handle and a small metal plate. Now I'm going to cut out the bigger piece that will go on the back of the tank. I'm cutting out the middle part of it with my clippers. And I'm trimming off any rough edges with my scalpel. I'm going to glue this really cool panel with the handle on using Tamiya glue, both from the front and the back, so it holds well. As you may have noticed, glued it from the front on the places where it'll connect with the main part, and from the front I'm also attaching these air vents from the engine. This is definitely the most challenging part so far. So the machine gun was nothing compared to this. I had to struggle so much with this that it's almost funny. It's all about the engine vents, the grill. This was really challenging for me because I'm just starting to learn how to attach these metal parts. I used black super glue since it holds them best, and later on I'll be able to clean up any uneven spots with debonder, which I'll show you once everything is glued together. So just enjoy the music because it might take a little while, but you get the idea. I still need to bend the metal parts. After finishing gluing the sheet metal with the other parts, we made the grill, but it's a bit dirty with black super glue. So I'm taking some debonder, putting it on a lid or something, and I'll clean the blackened spots with a regular little brush. The punch is for some of the holes in this sheet metal. Once both parts are done, I'll stick them onto the larger plate. I'll take out all the little wheels from the tank that I put in the tub to keep them there, and then I'll place the two large pieces onto the tub, pressing them firmly because some parts might not fit perfectly, so I press both of them firmly, and at the same time I also use a scalpel to even out any uneven edges on the piece that will join the front and the bottom parts together. Before gluing the parts together, I fit them to make sure they'll go in properly. If the fitting works well, meaning nothing gets stuck, then I take my glue, the Tamiya extra thin, and I seal the side panels to the large top frame. Here you can see, for example, that I'm widening a piece of plastic because it doesn't want to fit. I was glued incorrectly, and you can see me struggling a bit, so I'll let you watch that in Timex. I'm making the final adjustments with the glue, and once that's done, I apply a fairly heavy modeling paste on the model, which will just squeeze the plastic together, helping it bond quickly and effectively. As you can see, I'm now making some holes in the fender, which I'm about to glue on, and these holes will allow me to attach the track pieces in the right spot using small wedge shape sections. Now I'm going to glue these side panels on. Exactly like that. Now we're going to make some metal hooks that will attach to those pegs we glued on earlier. They're going to be like metal wires, so that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that we had this piece of string, but we won't really need it because it looks pretty bad. Instead, I'll use some copper wire to form a little metal cable. I'll cut it with some pliers, and I need 3 pieces of the same length along with a drill. So I'll cut a few more pieces with the pliers, join them all together at one end, and once that's done, mount it on the drill, and then show you what's next. Once I finish tying those copper wires together 3 times, I take the drill and secure everything to one of the edges. Now I take a piece of plastic from the whole set that I just cut out with pliers. It's kind of like a little stick. I tie it really tightly around that piece, hold it with 2 fingers, and press the trigger on the drill so that the copper wires spin around each other. While I do that, everything spins nicely, but I have to tighten it even more and hold it firmly so that the effect turns out really good, just like a store-bought wire. The effect of the obtained copper wire. Here are our 2 wires, and once we have them, I'll just glue them together with black super glue so that they have 2 spots where they can hook onto the hooks. This is how it looks once everything is put together, just like this. Now we're going to move on to a rather tedious task, although not as tedious as dealing with the wheels. I'm taking a scalpel and making a lot of grooves on the panels that have these protruding parts, just like before. Here it's a bit sped up as I do it, and I do it to achieve a better welding effect for these pieces. In Russia, it used to be very rough, very coarse. Those welds were quite crude. Right after cutting this, I take Tamiya extra thin and lightly apply it to the surface so that all these cuts don't chip off or come loose. Now that the model is finished, it's time for the stowage. The first thing we're going to do is to create these little cloth pieces that are left on the tank so that, for example, things don't get splashed, or just some pieces of fabric or clothing. We'll do this using Tamiya epoxy putty, smooth surface. You need to knead it really well in a cup so that the 2 different colors blend together. Then we'll take some baby powder and some material on which we'll roll out this little piece of putty. I'm using the smooth surface because, well, it's smooth. Oh yeah, boy, that is smooth. Now that we have the Tamiya smooth putty nicely rolled out, I take a scalpel and cut it at the spot I want. Really depends on your preference. I wanted to make 3 pieces, placed one at the back. I'm using a special tool to shape it even more, to create folds and so on. Now that we've placed the first piece of fabric, we take something like little knolled up items like Kent materials or clothing. I got these at a modeling fair. And now I'll just show you in a time lapse because I've got a few different pieces to see which one fits best. Once we've done that, we press the piece firmly into place where we want it. Now it's time for something else, namely a metal can. I take it, press it firmly where I had placed the rolled up tent. You can see that I've put a few new pieces on top, and now I'm gluing a wooden crate with some black super glue, and we're slowly nearing the end of this episode. I'll still add a few more little details. We're getting close to the end of this episode. If you liked it, please leave a subscribe and a like. If not, let me know in the comments what you think should be changed. Shorter episodes, different music, anything at all. Like maybe I should talk more or less since I'm still learning how to make these videos. That's it for me, and the next episode will be about how I assemble the turret. See you later. Take care.